Hello people, I've made a whole Caro Kann repertoire for free that you can use. You can get the link in the description, but in the text I haven't explained it that well. So this video is going to be me explaining the key ideas and so on, so that you can use and understand this repertoire. In this video we are going to cover the advanced variation. It is the most popular variation against the Caro Kann. So it starts with e4, it's a opening for black. c6, that's the Caro Kann. And there's many attempts for white. Dubious ones like maybe f4, even d3, c4, but by far the most challenging one is d4. White puts 2 pawns in the center, and we play d5. The point is that after white takes, we can recapture with a pawn. Like in the Scandinavian, for example, after takes, you would have to take back with the queen, where it can get attacked. So Caro Kann is much more solid with this, but the advanced variation, white takes space. And now we somehow need to develop our pieces. What I'm going to do this with is bishop f5 to play e6 next. See, we want to have this pawn chain, but if we do this right now, this bishop is going to be a bad bishop. There has been attempts like c5 by Gotham Chess and many other YouTubers, but I don't fully believe in this variation, especially if white takes. We need to play e6, we want to take back, but what if white just clings into this pawn? Well, knight e7, we will attack it again, but they pin on knight. Okay, knight e7, I mean bishop d4, knight c6, bishop takes, b takes, b4, I mean white holds onto this pawn, and yeah, we need to somehow compensate for this in some way, like everything is overextended, but I don't believe in this that well. The very simple move here is bishop to f5, where it's developed, it's going behind this pawn chain, and that's the variation I'm going to cover. Let's talk about the short variation, where white starts with knight to f3, e6, and bishop to e2. White wants to castle very quickly. A key idea in the Caro Kann, c5. We want to attack this pawn chain. And by doing this, we give space for pieces. We can develop, and our pieces won't be cramped together. Bishop e2, bishop e3. White holds onto the pawn chain. We take, and we don't really care about the bishop here. Play knight e7 as. If white were to take, we will just develop a knight, attack the bishop ourselves, and we have quick development. Not a big problem. White castles, knight c6, bishop e5, e6. And yeah, takes. So now we are kind of following the main theory. So if bishop takes, the main move is actually b takes, but I find it very complicated to play. I will just follow the main theory, and you can make your own thought out of this. e4, queen d7. Just follow along those moves. I will just show some of the theory. This has all been played many, many times, and this is kind of the position that you have to work with. All the moves to get to this position are very complicated too. I'm not too sure. I went with knight takes e6, which I find is more natural. You have to then deal with knight takes f5, and this time we don't have a knight to take back, but it's absolutely fine. Like bishop e7, we want to castle fast, and then we take this pawn if we were to take it right now. White has rook e1 and our king is in danger. So bishop e7 now. There is no rook e1. It's all covered up. We take. Bishop d4, f6. And after knight c6, we attack this bishop. The king very often goes to f7. There's not really any need to castle. It's all safe. And yet this is absolutely playable. But what if white absolutely holds into this pawn chain like this? This is very common for white to do. Where we can play knight d7. We could have played c5 too. I like knight d7 more, with the idea of here attacking this pawn chain with f6, maybe c5 later on. But also what we very often want to do is just put this knight on c6 instead. So where does this knight actually belong? Like, if this knight goes onto c6, where does this knight go? Very often to f5, but then it kind of has a difficult time with the bishop, so I believe this is a good way to play. This knight very often goes to c6, and we tag this pawn chain by that. If white tries knight d2, they develop the knight while they can still play c3. Putting the knight on c3 would be pretty much a mistake, as you really want to have this pawn chain. But anyways, c5, very common move. If they do take, that's absolutely fine. If they play c3, knight c6, and queen b6, if the bishop takes, you can see we can close this position. Those pawns are now completely stunned. This bishop cannot go anywhere active, as every single square is going to collide with a pawn. This variation is absolutely okay. If white protects this bishop, a6, and again it has to do something. So the idea here is to just close the position if white trades the lights with bishops. But if they take us, which white can do, we drop back. Knight d7, again the same idea. We want to recapture with the knight. Takes, bishop d3, castles, knight c6, bishop f4, and queen h4. So this is not really theory anymore. I looked at this with the engine and I thought this is pretty nice. I mean, we got this knight right here. We got this bishop, we got this queen staring. This is much better for black. If you're wondering what happens if white takes, this is absolutely fine. So this pawn is going to be weak. We have very simple development. We can attack it, put the rook here, maybe even f6 at some point. The queen still has access to this way, and it's very playable. So let's go to the different variation, where white plays a very weird move, g4. Also, I do want to mention that white play knight c3, which is usually wrong, but they take away the square from the bishop. So after g4, we cannot really go here. We would want that because then we provoke f3, and then we can drop back, but here we really can't. We need to go back. One more thing. Yeah, because the bishop is locked behind the pawn chain, this works. We cannot go back. Knight g2. White wants to attack the bishop. We attack the center. White wants to play h5, trapping our bishop. We prevent that. h6 is not really playable. It's extremely passive. h5. Knight f4. And this bishop is extremely strong this diagonal. So yeah, I mean, we cannot really do anything about this. We have to drop it back. Even if it sacrifices a pawn, we can see that the knight has moved 1, 2, 3 times just to take this one pawn. Well, we have a lot of pressure on the center. So knight c6, we add more pressure. He takes, and we take back. If white instead plays something like bishop to b5, we can simply play knight g7. Just protect this end. It's all going to be okay. Okay, queen b6. So one thing to understand from this position is, I will show position in a moment. Yeah, here. So let's go from this position. White has 3 pawns, but we have a knight. So the king is not really safe here. We got all those pieces staring at it. The knight might also come here. And we can push this pawn. It's absolutely okay for black. You need to be able to attack in some way. It can lead into such endgame where white has this bad pawn structure. We still got this very good bishop. We got a knight for 3 pawns. It should be around equal, but I think it's a bit better for black. Now what if white plays knight to c3, and this time it's considered a dubious move. because they don't have g4. The queen has no vision on this pawn, and yet they play knight to c3, which, I mean, this stops any attempt of playing c3. In the French, usually what you do is knight e2 and then play c3, but you don't really have the time here. We just play knight d7. Again, I believe c5 is absolutely okay. Knight d7 is just a preference for me again. I like the square for the knight a lot. But bishop d3 and... yeah, I mean, those are the plans for white. Now, knight e2 and c3. This is pretty much the main idea that white needs to follow. But it all takes time. We can attack the center. White's pieces don't work out in any way. It should be okay. Let's go to the bishop d3 line. Again, we cannot retreat it in any way. We just need to trade it off. c5. Again, we want to make space for pieces. Attack the center. Castles. If white instead plays c3. Again, knight to d7. The knight goes to c6, and I believe everything is okay. If white attempts something like this, we can just simply attack this pawn chain. If they now castle, again we can do the same. We can develop normally, and everything should be okay. If they try to pin on knight, h6, bishop h4, and we can play g5. Knight f5, attack this bishop, knight e2, h5, again, attack, attack, and attack. This is absolutely winning. So let's go back. What if they castle and not play c3? It's all okay. We just take then. Takes, the knight goes here, knight e2, and we can play knight c6. What if they play c4? So they do weaken the king side in some way. They have no access to c3 anymore. We can give this a check. Knight e2. Knight e7. And our king side is developed already. We are very fast in castling, while white still needs to find a way to develop his bishop and then castle. Queen b3. It's a good attempt of white, but we have simple a5. We can kind of lock this bishop here. If they play this very natural move, a3. Or what if they play it immediately? What if they play a3 immediately? Well, then we have time to play bishop b5, bishop a5. If they play b4, bishop c7, and okay, I've already drew the arrows here. Yeah, basically, e5 is extremely simple. Extremely simple to attack. Our plans are very easy. Play f6, attack this pawn chain, knight on d7 again, attack this pawn chain, and castle, again attack this pawn chain. So pretty simple. Queen b3, a5, a3. We don't need to retreat it, as there is no way to retreat it. This knight does stop this bishop from coming here, but we have one resource. We can go from danger levels. We attack this queen. So if bishop takes, we can attack this knight. And now knight d7. We allow white to take on b7, but we can play knight b6. Some of your players, of your opponents, will not even go into this line, because after knight b6, this queen is simply trapped. You see, this pawn is protected, this knight is protected, this rook is protected. All those squares are protected by the rook. All this again protected, and here by the queen. So this queen is trapped. 9 points down the drain for one pawn. After bishop t2, because it is attacked, we castle, castle, bishop e4, and one idea here might be to play bishop d5. This is actually not in the study, so it's kind of an insight that I have from myself from studying this variation. So you want to play bishop d5, and with the idea of c5, you actually can take this queen next. It is fully trapped, but white can stop you from doing this with, for example, b4. Rook ac1 is also something you might think of. We can retreat this knight. They take, but we can take the rook. So white got one bishop, 2 pawns. We got one rook. This is absolutely fine. This queen is still misplaced. Rook b8. Attack b2. This knight can come here at some point. d4 is weak. It's absolutely fine. So before a4 we close it. Again, the plan that I told you about, rook c5. They need to find all this, by the way. Like, they need to find this. Again, we are threatening c5. But they stopped this. Knight c8, this queen is trapped. Yeah, it's not fun to play like this for white. But what if they play c4 one move earlier? What if they played immediately? Before, I think we have seen knight f3 and then c4. But here, we get c4 immediately. Need to play e6. Knight c3. Yeah, we take. Also, if they take, I believe it should be fine to take with the c-pawn. You see, if we take with the e-pawn, it doesn't really make sense. One knight is behind this pawn. And if we want to play c5, then after like takes, we get this isolated pawn. Of course, putting the other knight is also fine, but it's not so fancy. I like this knight. If white doesn't take, you don't really need to worry. We're just going to take them and then replace the knight. So yeah, bishop e7. Now f4, and now we could take, so, which wouldn't be any fun. So yeah, take back of the c-pawn. If they do take you, knight c3 and bishop e4 again. If they give us this option to pin, then or to just give it a check, we should do it. Now we can put a lot of pressure. Knight e7, castles, queen a5, attack this knight on c3, and very simple plans. Knight f3, knight d7, bishop d3, queen a5. Bishop takes, d takes. a3, we get forced to take, but the queen on d5 is very nice. If instead they castle, we can take. No need to play a3. The queen is very nicely placed here. If you notice, d4 is very weak, c5 and knight c6 might be a good plan. We can castle a king, f6. It's all very standard plans, but it works. What if instead of knight f3 they play queen b3, and we've seen the same thing before with a5, a3. Again, we can do this. We can kind of do the same. No knight e7. It's pretty similar to the other variation. So now the queen isn't on b7. White doesn't have this pawn, but we cannot trap the queen. We just develop. Putting a knight on d5 is very nice. That's why we want to play knight b6. Actually, the top engine move recommendation here is knight b6 to go with this, but I think it's a little more principled to start out with this than castle and then go for knight b6 to put a knight on d5. It's a outpost. White would have to give up their bishop. So all of that is fine. If instead they play a3 instead of queen b3, we can take. And now, first of all, look at this pawn chain. They just weakened it for no reason. Knight e7, we can simply take the center and we give a pawn, yes, but queen c7 to follow. One pawn will be at least regained. Again, a3 is very weak, and this is basically what Caro Kann is about. Getting those, yeah, I mean, small advantages, very small ones for the end games. If you do ever trade the queens, then those pawns are going to be the weakness that you will try to win the game from. But let's try to go with maybe the most challenging variation from white, something that is played the most at the amateur level. That is the Tal variation, h4, and now we didn't really commit to e6 yet. So white wants to attack our bishop, but we didn't commit to it. One variation here that I thought of playing was a6, so that after g4 we just put the bishop back, and we're basically arguing like, okay, white, what did you just do? I mean, you completely weakened your king. This is the same idea that you get in the Jabava London if you were okay with me showing you this. I believe this is the variation. Yeah, should be. So it takes, and now bishop g4. After f3 we play bishop d7, and basically it's the same idea. This is what I play as black, not really. I play a6 here with then bishop g4 to follow, but I played this against a national master. I was completely winning. The reason is, yeah, I mean, white cannot develop the knight anymore. We just put the bishop back. G4 doesn't make any sense without the bishop being here. It's kind of the same idea. But we don't do that. I'm not going to give you any weird variations that where the engine says like +1. I do want to show you the main lines pretty much only, as I'm not entitled to do anything other than that. Who would believe me then? So bishop d3. White wants to trade off the bishops. Queen a5. And in those variations, you very often want to trade the queens. Here the move is e6. I put it in here because it's the theory. Queen a6 is also idea. C4 is the problem though. I feel like white doesn't need to trade. But yeah, e6 and knight can come here. f5. And yeah, when we get the chance to trade, we should. This is basically one of the ideas of the Tal variation. So here white put the knight away from c4, so white doesn't have c4 to stop the queens from looking at each other. We can offer this trade. The better way I feel like is to trade by trading like this, so that you can develop the knight, but queen b5 is also absolutely fine. If you take simple knight c6, a5, you get this pawn storm on the queen side. Okay, that's very playable. It's not really good for white, but of course white wants to avoid this queen trade. Play c5, attack the center. We've seen that enough of times. Queen b6, important, just to add one layer of attacker to the center. Now our plans are knight c6, bishop e7 castles. Maybe then we will take on d4 at some point. Okay, so again, if white plays bishop g5, we always need to see that they leave b2 unprotected. Like, again, for example, if I were to play white here, one thing that I've seen many times at over 2000 elo is in this opening here, people play bishop to g4, which is a mistake. I've got this so many times. He's simply queen b3 and white is crushing. White is absolutely crushing. So I've seen so many people. I've actually, I think I won against an international master because he played this. Like, you have to think, if this bishop moves, what did it use to protect? Of course, this pawn here. So what instinctively comes to your mind then, it should be queen to b3. The same goes to this right here. Yeah, so they stop protecting b2. What I will always play 10 out of 10 times, you can wake me up at 3 AM, I will play queen b6 here. I mean, yeah, really try to think of this. If this bishop ever moves, the same goes to this bishop. Okay, so bishop d3 we have to take, like always. Again, we want this queen trade. If they take back, we just develop a knight. We have no problems. So, queen h3. We play e6. Knight c3. And yeah, I mean, it's very typical Caro Kann play plans. Knight on f5. We want to attack the center again. So, 3 more chapters. h4 again, the Tal variation. This is the last chapter. They play c4 immediately. Knight c3. We take knight d7. Bishop e7 and... I mean, one thing to notice from the Tal variation is that with the moves h4 and h5, we both just kind of weaken those squares. So what you will often see here is we put a bishop here and white puts a bishop here. So that's absolutely common. If white tries to put a knight on d6, queen a5, bishop retreats, queen b6. So putting a knight here doesn't really make sense. We just take. This is not good. We could even think of something like this: taking this knight, queen has to recapture, and then we take on d4. What if they play on g4 again? But we haven't played e6, or they didn't even include knight c3. And this is an important thing that you have to watch out for. Here we can play bishop to e4, because they didn't play knight to c3 to stop us from doing this. If you play bishop g6 like before, it's not a blunder, but I put it as a blunder, because why do you do this? Like knight c3 is a bad move for the structure at all, so the plan of that is to stop us from coming to e4. But if they don't do this, then of course we want to provoke f3. So now they weaken this whole diagonal to the king. The white cannot develop to f3 anymore. And now we can go back. After e6, which is a great move. So if we take, or king is weak. If we play f6, or king is weak. If we play f5, or king is weak. If we play anything, or king is weak. So we got a pawn for this, h4, h5. We take. Queen d6, knight d2, knight d7, and yeah, the king is going to be in the center, but we have some development, we have some central control, especially with this knight here, with those pawns. White doesn't have that much of a safe king either. It's not really understandable to me, if I'm being honest. I'm not sure how I would play this in a game. I've never been in this position. But here we have a second variation. Again, we do the same thing. We provoke f3. After h4, h5, we will force white to take on f7. Once we take the pawn. Need to take back with the bishop. Now, if we look at those pieces, it is, nothing here is developed. While we kind of have a bishop developed here, this queen is kind of developed too. We didn't really push any of our pawns in front of the king yet. So we have less holes in the position. Knight d2 we take, and knight d7, and I don't believe that white is happy here in any way. e5 to follow. We have the option of long castling immediately. Go for this weak king in the center. Yes, 1, 2, 3 pieces that he has to put out of the way to castle. And castling short side is, I don't know if you want to do that. So that was the advanced variation. Basically, the key ideas here in this variation, I will show the short variation as example. Here, white takes space for now, so pieces are going to be cramped, especially the king side, because the bishop wants to go to e7, but at the same time the knight has to go to e7. In order to solve this, we want to break into the center of c5. And this we will do with putting the knight on d7. Very often the knight goes to c6 this way, so that the bishop can then go to e7, and then we castle this way. This kind of solves the problems. It's absolutely okay to play this way. Usually we want to go into endgames. Black is not really worse in endgames here. We can also play f6 to attack this pawn chain. That's the advanced variation. You can again find the study in the description. I have put many hours into this, so it would be nice if you could also like it. And you can also type some suggestions. I would be happy to change it. Next part is going to be about the classical with here knight to c3. We have to take back, we have to take this pawn. We can't do anything else. So here there is many moves like bishop to f5, then the Caro variation. This is what I used to play for myself, but the main move here, knight to f6. The Tartakower. This is the position that we will have to play with. We get those open bishops, but for this we have those double pawns. It has its ups and downsides. This is going to be the next chapter that I will be explaining. So see you soon.